Professor Zyx'nax adjusted his tentacles nervously as he faced the classroom of eager young xenobiology students. Today was the day of his most ambitious experiment yet, one that would either make his career or get him laughed out of academia forever. He cleared his throat sacs and began. Esteemed students, today we embark on a groundbreaking study of that most fascinating and terrifying of species, the humans. A chorus of gasps and excited murmurs rippled through the room. Humans were legendary throughout the galaxy, known for their inexplicable ability to survive on their deadly homeworld and their even more baffling penchant for seeking out danger. Now, settle down, Zyx'nax chided, waving his tentacles for quiet. I know humans are an exciting subject, but we must approach this scientifically. Today we will be conducting a series of experiments to test the oft-repeated claim that humans possess what amount to superpowers compared to other sapient races. He paused for dramatic effect, enjoying the rapt attention of his students. And to ensure the utmost scientific rigor, we will be using a live human subject. The classroom erupted in a cacophony of excited squeals, nervous chittering, and one student fainting dead away. Zyx'nax allowed himself a smug waggle of his eye stalks. Oh yes, this would be a lecture they'd never forget. Once the commotion died down, Zyx'nax continued. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering where I managed to procure a human test subject on such short notice. Well, it just so happens that a human exchange student recently enrolled at our university. She agreed to participate in our experiment in exchange for extra credit in her Xenobiology 101 course. He turned to the door and called out, "You can come in now, Ms. Johnson." The door slid open with a hiss, and a collective gasp went up from the class as a human female sauntered in. She was of average height and build for her species, with brown fur, no hair atop her head, and pale pinkish skin. But to the alien student, she may as well have been the most exotic creature in the galaxy. "Sup, everybody," the human said with a casual wave. "I'm Sarah, ready to science the shit out of this," she grinned, revealing disturbingly sharp omnivore teeth. Professor Zyx'nax fought the urge to recoil. Even after extensive study of humans, he still found their appearance unsettling. Those flat faces, protruding nasal structures, and beady little eyes. He shuddered inwardly. Composing himself, he addressed the class. "Yes, well, thank you for that colorful introduction, Ms. Johnson. Now then, let us begin with our first experiment, testing the human's legendary endurance." He gestured to a complex-looking treadmill-like device. "Ms. Johnson, if you would be so kind as to step onto the running platform." Sarah shrugged. "Sure thing, Prof. But I gotta warn you, I haven't hit the gym in like a month. My cardio's probably shit." The professor blinked in confusion. "I see. Well, no matter. Please begin running at a moderate pace." Sarah started jogging, her rhythmic footfalls echoing through the silent classroom. All eyes were glued to her, watching in fascination. Now, Zyx'nax said, "We will gradually increase the difficulty. First, we'll raise the incline." The treadmill tilted upward sharply. Sarah's pace didn't change. ... Then the speed. The belt began moving faster. Sarah transitioned smoothly into a run. ... And finally, we'll decrease the oxygen content of the air to simulate high-altitude conditions. A slight shimmering in the air around Sarah was the only sign of the changing atmosphere. She was starting to breathe harder now, but showed no signs of stopping. After 30 minutes of ever-increasing difficulty, Zyx'nax was forced to concede defeat. "All right, that's enough, Ms. Johnson. You may stop now." Sarah hopped off the treadmill, barely even sweating. That was a nice warm-up. What's next? The class buzzed with excited whispers. Zyx'nax's eye stalks drooped slightly. This was going to be a long day. "Yes, well, very impressive indeed," he said, trying to hide his discomfort. "Now let us move on to testing the human's much-vaunted strength and durability." He led Sarah to a contraption that looked like a bizarre cross between a weight machine and a medieval torture device. "This apparatus will test your lifting capacity, impact resistance, and pain tolerance simultaneously. Are you prepared?" Sarah cracked her knuckles, grinning. "Hit me with your best shot, Prof." What followed was a display of physical prowess that left the alien students in awe. Sarah lifted weights that would have crushed most species, endured impacts that should have pulverized her bones, and shrugged off pain that would have sent others into shock. "Woohoo," Sarah whooped as she bench-pressed a weight larger than herself. "I feel like I'm in a montage from an 80s action movie. All we need now is some sick guitar riffs." Zyx'nax's professional demeanor was starting to crack. Yes, very impressive. But surely you must have some limits. What about extreme temperatures? Humans are said to be able to survive in a remarkably wide range of thermal conditions. Sarah's eyes lit up. "Ooh, are we doing a sauna experiment? I love saunas." Before Zyx'nax could protest, Sarah had already stripped down to her undergarments and stepped into the thermal testing chamber. The alien students tittered nervously at the sight of so much exposed human skin. "All right, crank it up," Sarah called out. "Let's see how hot we can go." Zyx'nax, thoroughly flustered now, began raising the temperature. 30 degrees Celsius, 40, 50, 60. At 70 degrees, Sarah was sweating profusely but still grinning. "This is great. Really opens up the pores, you know. Zyx'nax's tentacles were practically tied in knots with frustration. Enough. We'll try cold instead. He rapidly lowered the temperature. 10 degrees, 0, -10, -20. At -30 degrees Celsius, Sarah was shivering but still conscious and coherent. Be brisk, she chattered through blue-tinged lips. R reminds me of W. Winter back home. Zyx'nax slumped in defeat, his eye stalks drooping to the floor. I give up, he muttered. You may exit the chamber, Ms. Johnson. As Sarah emerged, wrapped in a thermal blanket and still grinning, Zyx'nax turned to address the class. Well, it seems the legends about human resilience were not exaggerated. But surely there must be some area where they are not unreasonably superior. What about mental capabilities, reaction times, sensory perception? What followed was a barrage of tests, each more outlandish than the last. Sarah solved complex mathematical equations while juggling, navigated a holographic maze blindfolded, and identified hundreds of distinct odors with terrifying accuracy. This is way more fun than I expected, Sarah laughed as she effortlessly multitasked through challenges that would have reduced most beings to quivering piles of stress. You guys should put this stuff in an escape room or something. By this point, Zyx'nax had given up any pretense of scientific detachment. His tentacles were flailing wildly as he paced back and forth, muttering to himself, "It doesn't make sense. No species should be this adaptable. It defies all laws of evolution." Sarah, now comfortably reclined in a chair and snacking on some alien fruit, chimed in. "Hey, Prof, maybe you're looking at this all wrong. Instead of trying to find our weaknesses, why not focus on how our abilities could benefit galactic society?" Zyx'nax froze mid-flail. What? Sarah shrugged. I mean, think about it. Humans can survive in environments that would kill most species, right? So we'd be great for colonizing harsh planets or for search and rescue operations in dangerous areas. The professor's eye stalks swiveled as he considered this. Well, I suppose. And our endurance and strength could be useful for all sorts of labor-intensive jobs, Sarah continued, warming to her theme. Plus, our sensory abilities and problem-solving skills could be applied to all kinds of scientific and engineering challenges. Zyx'nax's tentacles slowly unknotted as he listened. You may have a point, Ms. Johnson. Sarah grinned. See, we're not so scary once you get to know us. Well, unless you're a bucket of chicken wings, then you should be terrified. She winked at a nearby student, who promptly fainted. The professor cleared his throat sacs. Yes, well, I believe we've all learned a valuable lesson today about not judging a species by its terrifying reputation and unsettling appearance. He turned to address the class, his professional demeanor somewhat restored. Students, it seems we must revise our understanding of humans. While their capabilities may seem like superpowers to us, they are simply the result of evolving on a high-gravity, high-radiation planet with extreme temperature variations and abundant predators. Sarah nodded sagely. Yep, Earth's basically the galaxy's gym. We're all just a bunch of adrenaline junkies too stubborn to die. Zyx'nax continued, gaining enthusiasm as he spoke. But rather than fear these abilities, we should consider how they might complement our own species' strengths. Galactic civilization has long prided itself on unity through diversity. Perhaps it is time we embraced our Deathworlder neighbors as valuable allies. The class murmured in agreement, eye stalks and tentacles waving in the alien equivalent of applause. Sarah stood up and took a theatrical bow. Thank you. I'll be here all semester. Don't forget to tip your waitress. As the students filed out, chattering excitedly about all they had learned, Zyx'nax approached Sarah. Ms. Johnson, I must thank you for your participation today. You've given me much to think about, and I believe my future research will be all the richer for it. Sarah smiled, happy to help, Prof. It was actually pretty fun being a lab rat for a day. Though I gotta say, some of those tests were a bit weird. I mean, what was with that one involving the kazoo and the jello? Zyx'nax's skin flushed a deeper shade of blue. Ah, yes, well, perhaps I got a bit carried away with some of the experimental design, scientific curiosity and all that. Aha, Sarah said, clearly unconvinced. Well, anyway, I should get going. I've got a rock climbing club meeting in 10 minutes. The professor's eye stalks shot up in alarm. Rock climbing. But after all the exertion from today's experiments, surely you need rest. Sarah laughed. Nah, I'm good. This was just a light workout. I gotta keep in shape, you know. Catch you later, Prof. As she jogged out of the room, Zyx'nax shook his head in bemused disbelief. Deathworlders, he muttered. I don't think I'll ever fully understand them. He began tidying up the classroom, his mind already racing with ideas for future experiments and papers. One thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same now that humans had joined the interstellar community. As he worked, he chuckled to himself. Perhaps next semester he'd organize a cultural exchange program. He could already imagine the chaos of sending some of his alien students to experience life on Earth now. That would be an experiment worth watching. Little did Zyx'nax know, but his innocent classroom demonstration would soon spark a galaxy-wide reevaluation of human potential. In the years to come, humans would become highly sought after for dangerous jobs, exploration missions, and extreme sports competitions across the cosmos. Earth, once feared as a deadly death world, became known as the ultimate training ground for the galaxy's most elite operatives. Alien tourists flocked to experience its terrifying environments, turning previously mundane human activities into extreme adventure tourism. Bungee jumping in Earth's crushing gravity became a popular dare among alien youth. Human foods like hot peppers and caffeine were treated like powerful alien drugs. And don't even get started on the interstellar popularity of human action movies, which most species viewed as surreal science fiction. Sarah Johnson went on to become a celebrated xenoanthropologist, bridging the gap between human and alien cultures. Her best-selling book, So You Think You Can, Deathworld, A Human's Guide to Galactic Life, became required reading in schools across the galaxy. And Professor Zyx'nax? He eventually got over his fear of humans mostly and became the galaxy's foremost expert on human biology and culture. His lecture series, Deathworlders Demystified, consistently sold out stadiums on every major planet. Though he still flinched whenever a human smiled too widely at him. Those teeth were just unsettling, no matter how friendly the intent. As for the broader consequences of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage, well, that's a story for another day. But let's just say that the universe was in for one wild ride. Because if there's one thing humans love more than defying death, it's sharing that love with everyone they meet, whether they want it or not. In the end, it turned out that humanity's greatest superpower wasn't their strength, or their endurance, or even their adaptability. It was their boundless enthusiasm for life itself, their insatiable curiosity, and their ability to find joy in the face of adversity. And if that meant occasionally terrifying their alien neighbors with their death world antics, well, that was just part of the fun. So the next time you look up at the stars, remember, somewhere out there, a human is probably doing something incredibly stupid and dangerous, and loving every second of it, because that's just what Deathworlders do. Epilogue, 5 years later. Professor Zyx'nax nervously adjusted his ceremonial robes as he prepared to give the commencement speech for this year's graduating class. So much had changed since that fateful day in his classroom. The university had become a shining beacon of interspecies cooperation, with humans and aliens learning side by side. The campus now boasted state-of-the-art Deathworld simulation facilities, where non-human students could safely experience Earth-like conditions. As Zyx'nax took the stage, he gazed out at the sea of faces, tentacles, eye stalks, antennae, and yes, those still slightly unnerving human visages. His gaze settled on a familiar figure in the front row. Sarah Johnson, now Dr. Johnson, gave him a thumbs up and a wink. Zyx'nax cleared his throat sacs and began. Esteemed graduates, honored guests, and beings of all planetary origins. When I first began studying humans, I thought I was researching a dangerous anomaly, a species that defied the laws of nature. What I discovered instead was that the universe is far more wondrous and varied than we ever imagined. Humans taught us that what we perceive as limitations are often just opportunities for growth. They showed us that with determination, creativity, and a healthy disregard for self-preservation, anything is possible. A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. Several humans whooped and high-fived their alien friends. But more importantly, Zyx'nax continued, his voice growing passionate. Humans reminded us of something we had nearly forgotten in our comfortable, safe worlds. They taught us to embrace challenges, to push boundaries, and to never stop exploring. In short, my dear graduates, the humans taught us how to truly live. The audience erupted in cheers, applause, and various species-specific sounds of approval. Zyx'nax felt a surge of pride as he watched human and alien students celebrating together. So as you go forth into the galaxy, he concluded, remember the lessons we've learned. Be curious, be brave, be kind, and most importantly, be ready for anything. Because in a universe where Deathworlders and Paradise Worlders can become the best of friends, anything is possible. As the graduates threw their caps and other assorted headgear into the air, Zyx'nax allowed himself a very human gesture, a wide smile. He had come a long way from the nervous professor who once flinched at the sight of human teeth. The ceremony concluded with a bang, literally. A group of enthusiastic human graduates had somehow smuggled in a confetti cannon, much to the alarm and delight of their alien classmates. As multicolored paper rained down on the crowd, Zyx'nax couldn't help but chuckle. Typical humans, always finding new ways to startle him. As the excitement died down and the graduates began dispersing to find their families, Zyx'nax made his way through the crowd. He was immediately accosted by a group of beaming parents, a mix of humans and aliens, all eager to shake his hand or tentacle or pseudopod. Professor Zyx'nax, a booming voice called out. He turned to see a large, burly human man approaching, accompanied by a petite woman who could only be his wife. We're Sarah Johnson's parents. We can't thank you enough for everything you've done for our daughter. Zyx'nax felt a flutter of nervousness. He'd interacted with plenty of humans over the years, but meeting the parents of his star pupil and now colleague was something else entirely. Ah, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Your daughter has been an invaluable asset to our xenobiology department. Mrs. Johnson smiled warmly. Oh, Oh, please call us Bob and Linda. Sarah's told us so much about you and your work. Is it true you once tried to test her pain tolerance by making her listen to Vaughan poetry? Zyx'nax's skin flushed a deep blue. Ah, yes, well, in my defense, I wasn't fully aware of the Geneva Convention's stance on cruel and unusual punishment at the time. The Johnsons laughed good-naturedly, and Zyx'nax found himself relaxing. As they chatted, he couldn't help but marvel at how far things had come. Here he was, casually joking with the parents of a species he once considered terrifyingly alien. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the refreshment table. A group of Florian students with their delicate petal-like appendages were gathered around a human graduate who was demonstrating. Was that a keg stand? Oh dear, Zyx'nax muttered. If you'll excuse me, I should probably intervene before. Too late. The human lost his balance, toppling into the group of Florians. There was a moment of panic as the delicate aliens were buried under a pile of sturdy human and spilled beer. But then, to everyone's surprise, the Florians emerged unscathed, laughing and shaking droplets from their petals. That was amazing, one of them exclaimed. The rush of blood to the head, the disorientation. Is this how humans have fun? We must try it. Zyx'nax watched in a mix of horror and amusement as the Florians attempted to replicate the keg stand, their petal limbs waving comically in the air. He made a mental note to update the university's interspecies safety guidelines. Again. As the day wore on, Zyx'nax found himself pulled into countless conversations, each one a testament to the incredible changes of the past few years. He chatted with a Zorgak student who had overcome her species' natural photophobia to study Earth's sunrises. He congratulated a human who had mastered the art of Andromeda's 7 multi-dimensional chess, despite having only 3-dimensional senses. But the moment that truly struck him came late in the afternoon. As the crowd thinned, he spotted Sarah deep in conversation with a group of aliens. They were clustered around a holographic display, gesticulating excitedly. Curious, Zyx'nax drifted closer to listen. And that's why I think a joint expedition to the Crab Nebula is not only possible but essential, Sarah was saying. We've got Xlorback shielding technology, human endurance, Pylorian navigation skills, and Earthling creativity. Together we could unlock secrets of the universe that none of our species could discover alone. Zyx'nax felt a swell of pride. This was what it was all about, not just coexistence but true collaboration. Beings from across the galaxy, each bringing their unique strengths to tackle the universe's greatest challenges. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the campus, Zyx'nax found a quiet moment to himself. He watched as humans and aliens mingled, laughed, and celebrated together. In the distance he could see the newly constructed extreme environment training facility, where tomorrow's generation of explorers, human and alien alike, would prepare for the challenges of the cosmos. He thought back to that first day in his classroom when he had been so focused on finding human weaknesses, how foolish he had been. The true strength of humanity, of all sentient species, lay not in physical prowess or mental acuity, but in the ability to adapt, to learn, and to work together. A tap on his shoulder interrupted his reverie. He turned to find Sarah grinning at him, her eyes shining with excitement. Hey, Prof, she said. Some of us are planning a little post-graduation expedition. Nothing major, just a quick jaunt to the edge of a black hole to study time dilation effects. Wanna come? Zyx'nax felt a moment of his old fear resurface. The edge of a black hole. Surely that was too dangerous, too reckless, too human. But then he looked at Sarah's face, saw the mixture of curiosity and determination that he had come to associate with the best of humanity. He thought of all he had learned, all the wonders he had experienced since that fateful day in his classroom. And for the first time in his life, Professor Zyx'nax felt a very human emotion. The urge to do something incredibly stupid and dangerous, just for the sheer thrill of discovery. He straightened his posture. All 4 of his eye stalks focused on Sarah. Ms. Johnson, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. I believe the correct human phrase is, let's do this. Sarah's whoop of joy was so loud it startled a flock of passing Avian X students into flight. As she excitedly began outlining their plans, Zyx'nax allowed himself a small, secret smile. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and thanks to the indomitable spirit of humanity and the newfound courage of those they had inspired, it was about to get a whole lot smaller. As the first stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Professor Zyx'nax realized that his greatest experiment was only just beginning, and he couldn't wait to see the results. The end, or perhaps just the beginning.